Today's story takes us to Oak Ridge Heights, where a young black girl takes a simple step toward her dream, raising money for a theater camp. She sells popcorn to make that dream come true. Will she make it? Why did the bikers stop in front of her stall? Are they trying to help or sabotage? Stay tuned for more stories like this on H2 Black Thread. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with our latest videos, because the truth deserves to be told. Let's begin. The sun hung high in the sky, casting golden rays over the quiet suburban streets of Oak Ridge Heights. It was a peaceful Saturday morning, the air warm but not yet oppressive, as the start of summer hinted at what was to come. The neighborhood was calm, with birds singing and the soft rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze passed by. Most people were still at home, taking their time to enjoy the weekend, but for Maya Ellis, the day was already off to a busy start. Maya, a 12-year-old girl with an infectious smile and sparkling eyes, stood proudly behind her makeshift popcorn stand. She had carefully placed it outside the small, one-story house she shared with her mom, Danielle Ellis. The house was modest but cozy, with a neatly trimmed lawn and a tall oak tree in the yard that provided a cool patch of shade. It was a warm home filled with love, and Maya felt lucky to have such a supportive mother. Today, though, Maya was on her own, ready to make her mark on the neighborhood. Her stand was simple, just a folding table covered with a bright, checkered cloth. A large glass jar filled with freshly popped popcorn sat in the center, surrounded by bowls of different seasonings she had prepared. Some bowls held classic butter and salt, while others were filled with more exotic flavors like cheddar, caramel, and a tangy lemon zest. Beside the jar of popcorn was a hand-painted sign that read, "Maya's Popcorn Stand $1 per cup," with a heart and a playful popcorn illustration. She had spent the entire evening before crafting the sign, making sure it looked perfect and inviting. With her apron tied around her waist, Maya eagerly prepared the stand for the day. Her fingers moved swiftly as she set up the cups, arranged the seasonings, and placed a small tip jar at the end of the table. She had spent the past few days perfecting her popcorn recipe. Every batch had been made with care and a sprinkle of love. Her dream was simple: raise enough money to attend the summer theater camp she had been eyeing for months. It wasn't a cheap camp, and Maya knew she would have to work hard to make her dream come true. Maya's love for theater had started at a young age. She had always been the shy, quiet type, but when she got on stage, she felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. The camp offered an opportunity to work with professional actors, directors, and teachers, and Maya's excitement about the possibility of improving her acting skills kept her motivated. The only problem: it cost $500, a sum her mom couldn't easily spare. So, Maya decided to take matters into her own hands. She figured that if she could sell enough popcorn, she might just raise the money she needed to go. "All right, this is it," Maya muttered to herself, taking a deep breath. "Today's the day." Maya glanced around the neighborhood, watching as a few neighbors began to stir. Mrs. Andrews, who lived next door, was out watering her plants, and Maya waved enthusiastically. Mrs. Andrews was one of Maya's biggest supporters, always stopping by whenever she set up her stand for a quick chat or a purchase. "Morning, Maya," Mrs. Andrews called out, smiling at her. "How's the popcorn business today?" "Good morning, Mrs. Andrews. So far, so good," Maya responded, her voice full of hope. She adjusted the cups on the table and shot Mrs. Andrews her brightest smile. Mrs. Andrews gave her an approving nod. "I bet you're going to sell out in no time with that smile and your homemade popcorn." Maya beamed with pride as Mrs. Andrews walked over to buy a cup of caramel popcorn. Maya filled the cup carefully, adding just the right amount of seasoning, and handed it over. Mrs. Andrews paid with a $2 bill and took a sip, nodding in approval. Delicious, Maya. Keep up the great work. You'll reach your goal in no time. Thanks, Mrs. Andrews, Maya said, her heart swelling with encouragement. As Mrs. Andrews returned to her garden, Maya couldn't help but feel a spark of confidence. She had already made her first sale of the day, and it felt like the start of something big. With her first sale under her belt, Maya began to feel a little more at ease. She looked down at the small notebook beside her, where she had written down her goal, $500 for the camp. She had done the math and figured that if she sold $1 popcorn cups, she would need to sell 500 cups. She wasn't sure if it was realistic, but Maya was determined to try. She had always believed in hard work, and this was just another challenge to tackle. The day went on slowly. A few more neighbors walked by and stopped to buy a cup, some exchanging pleasantries and others offering kind words of encouragement. Maya kept her energy up, smiling and chatting as she carefully poured the popcorn into each cup. Her mom occasionally checked on her from the porch, offering small words of praise and making sure she had everything she needed. It wasn't long before Kiara, a girl from her school who lived a few houses down, walked by with a few friends. Kiara was about Maya's age, a little taller with curly hair and a cheerful personality. She stopped at the stand and eyed the different popcorn options. "Hey, Maya, what's all this?" Kiara asked, pointing to the table. Maya smiled. "Hi, Kiara, I'm selling popcorn to raise money for a theater camp." "You want to try some?" Kiara raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "A theater camp, huh? That's awesome. I've got $1. Can I get one of the caramel ones?" "Coming right up," Maya said, handing her the cup of caramel popcorn. Kiara paid and Maya added the finishing touches, making sure the popcorn was perfect. "Good luck, Maya. I hope you raise enough money." Kiara called as she waved goodbye and rejoined her friends, who were playing basketball across the street. Maya waved back, feeling a wave of warmth spread through her chest. Slowly but surely, she was starting to make some progress. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Maya's sales were starting to add up. She had made $15, not even close to the $500 goal, but it was a start. She felt her determination grow with every dollar that came in. Her mom came out with a wide-brimmed hat to shield Maya from the growing heat of the afternoon. "How's it going, baby?" she asked, settling beside Maya. "I've made $15 so far," Maya said proudly. "It's not much, but it's a start." Her mom beamed at her. "I'm so proud of you, Maya. You're working hard, and that's what matters." Maya smiled and turned back to her stand. The day was far from over, and her journey to the theater camp had just begun. With every cup of popcorn she sold, she felt one step closer to her dream. But as the warmth of the afternoon sun bathed her in light, Maya had no idea that today, things were about to take an unexpected turn. And as the sounds of the neighborhood grew quieter, there was a faint hum in the distance, one that would soon bring a group of bikers to her stand, and change everything she thought she knew about hard work, dreams, and community. She couldn't have known then, but today was going to be a day she would never forget. Maya Ellis had spent the early part of the afternoon tending to her popcorn stand with a sense of pride. Every bag she sold, every cup of popcorn she filled was a step closer to her dream. She had no idea how long it would take to reach her goal of $500 for theater camp, but she was willing to work for it. The quiet neighborhood in Oak Ridge Heights was buzzing with activity. Kids were playing basketball, neighbors were taking walks, and the hum of distant conversations filled the air. It was a perfect summer day, and Maya was determined to make it count. As she adjusted the sign that read "Maya's Popcorn Stand $1 per cup," she took a moment to glance at the notebook beside her. $15. That was the total amount she had earned so far. It wasn't much, but she knew it was just the beginning. Her mother, Danielle Ellis, had made her favorite grilled cheese for lunch earlier, and Maya had eagerly returned to the stand, refueled and ready to face the rest of the afternoon. She wiped her hands on her apron, feeling the warmth of the sun on her back, and looked around. Everything seemed peaceful, until she heard the faint sound of something distant. At first, it was barely audible, a low vibration that seemed to be coming from the far end of the street. Maya paused and tilted her head, trying to make sense of the noise. Vroom, vroom, vroom. It was getting louder. It wasn't the sound of a car. It wasn't the sound of kids playing either. This was something else entirely. A sudden rush of engines filled the air, and Maya's heart skipped a beat. She looked down the street, her eyes scanning the area, trying to figure out what was happening. Her breath caught in her throat as the noise grew louder. Motorcycles. She squinted, searching the horizon, and then she saw them. A line of sleek motorcycles with gleaming chrome, their engines roaring as they thundered down the street. There were at least 8 of them, and they were headed straight for her stand. Her heart raced. Maya had never been in close contact with bikers before. She had seen them ride past occasionally, but never this close, and never so many at once. Her initial reaction was one of excitement, mixed with a bit of nervousness. The idea of a group of powerful, leather-clad riders pulling up to her stand made her uneasy. She wasn't sure what to expect. Her mind raced with possibilities. What if they made fun of her popcorn stand? What if they weren't friendly? As the sound of the engines got louder, a wave of unease washed over her. What if they didn't take her seriously? She had worked so hard on this, and now it felt like her little dream was about to be tested in a way she hadn't anticipated. But there was no turning back now. Maya straightened her shoulders, forcing herself to stand tall, and looked at her stand. She had prepared for customers of all kinds. She had to be ready for anything. The bikers were getting closer, and she could hear the distinct roar of their engines as they approached, cutting through the quiet of the afternoon. Her eyes widened as the first few motorcycles rolled into view, their riders clad in dark leather jackets. The leader of the group was the first to stop. Maya could feel her pulse quicken as they came closer, each motorcycle slowly pulling into place in front of her stand. The street had gone from peaceful and calm to suddenly tense, and Maya felt a lump form in her throat. What was she supposed to do? The leader of the pack was a man who looked to be in his late 40s, tall with a thick, graying beard. His jacket was decorated with various patches that Maya didn't recognize, and he had an aura of quiet authority. His motorcycle was the biggest and the most imposing, shining like a polished gem in the afternoon sunlight. He cut the engine smoothly, the rumbling of the bikes coming to an end as the group slowly dismounted, their boots hitting the pavement with heavy thuds. Maya froze, her fingers lightly gripping the edge of the table as she watched them. Her heart pounded in her chest, and a cold sweat began to form on her brow. The entire street seemed to hold its breath, and the once lively neighborhood felt eerily quiet. The bikers began dismounting their motorcycles one by one, each one wearing a black leather jacket adorned with skulls, flames, and names she didn't recognize. They were a rough-looking group, with tattoos peeking out from under their sleeves and expressions that seemed unreadable. But what caught Maya's attention the most was the leader, the man with the thick beard. He approached her stand slowly, his footsteps heavy yet purposeful. Maya couldn't help but feel small in comparison. Her thoughts were a blur as he came closer, stopping right in front of her table. The world seemed to hold its breath. "Is this where I can get the best popcorn in town?" he asked, his voice deep and rumbling like the engines that had just passed. Maya blinked, unsure of how to respond. Was he mocking her? Was he serious? Her throat tightened, but she managed to force out a smile. "Yes, sir," she said softly, trying to steady her nerves. $1 per cup." The man's lips twitched into a small, approving smile. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a crumpled dollar bill and handing it over. "Make it two," he said, and Maya's hands trembled slightly as she took the bill. The air around her felt thick with tension, but she refused to let it show. She quickly grabbed 2 paper cups and filled them with fresh popcorn, careful to add just the right amount of seasoning. As she handed them over, the man took a deep breath and tasted the popcorn. "Not bad, kid." His voice was unexpectedly warm, breaking through the silence that had fallen over the stand. "Best popcorn I've had in years." The words caught Maya off guard. She had expected to be criticized or, at best, ignored, but this was a compliment. A genuine compliment. Her mind still raced with questions. Who were these people? What did they want? But before she could gather her thoughts, the biker handed her the empty cup and turned to the other members of his group. "All right, folks," he called out, "looks like we've got a new customer base." He raised his cup and the others followed suit, taking a sip of their popcorn. "Best popcorn I've had in years." One of the other bikers, a tall woman with braided hair and a jacket that read Sherry, stepped forward. She handed Maya a $5 bill with a grin. "I'll take 10 cups for the crew," she said, her voice warm yet commanding. Maya blinked, still processing everything. "10?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Yep, 10 cups," Sherry confirmed. "The crew's thirsty." Maya quickly began to prepare the order, her hands moving faster now, a mix of excitement and disbelief coursing through her. She couldn't quite believe what was happening. The bikers, who had once seemed intimidating and distant, were now acting like they were part of her world, like they were her customers, just like anyone else. Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. As she handed over the cups, the bikers began to joke among themselves, pulling out their wallets and tipping her generously. Maya could hardly believe the scene unfolding before her. This wasn't what she had expected at all. She had been so afraid of being judged or rejected, but instead, these bikers had shown her nothing but kindness. The leader, Jax, smiled at her and gave her a thumbs up. "Kid's got talent," he said, and the others echoed the sentiment. By the time the last biker had made his order, Maya felt a surge of energy and excitement flood through her. They were treating her like a professional, like someone who had been running a stand for years. Maya wasn't just the girl with a popcorn stand anymore. She was Maya, the girl with the best popcorn in town. With the bikers finally finishing their orders, they gathered around, chatting and laughing as they enjoyed their popcorn. They spoke about their bikes, about the open road, and even about the small things, what they liked to do on their days off, the places they'd visited, and their favorite kinds of food. Maya stood there, watching in awe, feeling as though the world around her had just expanded in ways she hadn't imagined. She realized that something much bigger than just selling popcorn had happened here. These bikers, whose intimidating presence had made her nervous at first, were now a part of her story, a story she would never forget. As they prepared to leave, Jax turned to Maya and nodded. "We'll be back, kid," he said. "And we're going to spread the word about your stand." With a final wave, they hopped back onto their motorcycles, their engines roaring to life once more. Maya stood frozen in place, watching them ride off. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The world around her had shifted, and in that moment, Maya Ellis knew one thing for sure. Her small dream was starting to become something much bigger than she had ever imagined. Maya Ellis stood at her popcorn stand, still in shock from the sudden arrival of the group of bikers. Their roaring motorcycles and tough, leather-clad presence had initially intimidated her. But now, as the last of the bikes revved their engines and began to pull away, Maya felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. The bikers had not only bought her popcorn, but they had also complimented her on her work, tipping generously and leaving her with a pile of cash she never expected. Her heart still raced as she watched them disappear down the street. She couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened. What had started as a quiet, peaceful day selling popcorn had turned into something she never could have predicted. The bikers, who seemed so intimidating at first, had turned out to be some of the kindest and most supportive customers she could ever have imagined. Maya glanced down at the tip jar beside her stand. The few dollars she had earned earlier in the day had now been dwarfed by the mountain of cash the bikers had contributed. The $5 bill Sherry had handed her for 10 cups, the $20 tip from one of the younger bikers, and the large sum they had passed around in Jax's helmet. All of it added up to more than $250, easily surpassing her earlier expectations. Maya couldn't believe it. She had gone from being a little girl selling popcorn in front of her house to suddenly having a legitimate customer base, all thanks to the bikers' generosity. As the sound of their motorcycles faded into the distance, she took a moment to catch her breath, trying to wrap her mind around everything that had just happened. Well, well, well. A voice broke through her thoughts, and Maya looked up to see her mother, Danielle Ellis, standing on the porch with a knowing smile. "Looks like you had quite the day, huh?" Maya's eyes widened. "Mom, you won't believe it. Those bikers, they bought almost everything, and they gave me this." She held up the helmet full of cash, still in awe of the unexpected windfall. Danielle walked over, her eyes scanning the scene. "I see you've been busy," she said with a proud smile. "That's quite a haul you've got there, Maya." "I knew you had it in you." Maya couldn't contain her excitement. "I still can't believe it. I thought they were just gonna mock my little popcorn stand or ignore it, but instead, they were so nice. They tipped me like crazy, and they even said they'd spread the word. I think they really liked my popcorn." Her mother nodded thoughtfully, her gaze shifting to the now empty street. "People are full of surprises," she said. "But it's not just about the popcorn, Maya. You've got something special. It's your energy, your spirit. That's what people are drawn to. You've got a way of making people feel good." Maya's heart swelled with gratitude as she listened to her mother's words. The day had already been a success in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had made enough money to put a significant dent in her goal for the theater camp, and the bikers had shown her that her hard work was being noticed. But there was something deeper she was starting to understand. It wasn't just about the money or the popcorn. It was about connecting with people. As she was lost in thought, a group of neighborhood kids approached, their excited chatter filling the air. They were the same group that had been playing basketball earlier in the day. Kiara, the girl Maya knew from school, led the group, with a few of her friends trailing behind her. Maya's heart skipped a beat when she saw them. She had always been a little shy around her peers, especially when they didn't understand her ambitions. She wasn't sure how they would react to her selling popcorn outside her house. But now, with the bikers' unexpected support still fresh in her mind, she felt a sense of confidence she hadn't known before. "Hey, Maya," Kiara called out with a wide grin. "I heard about your stand from the bikers. They were talking about you like you were the next big thing around here." Maya's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and pride. "Really?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "What did they say?" Kiara laughed. "They were all talking about how amazing your popcorn was. They even said it was the best they'd ever had." She raised an eyebrow playfully. "I guess you're the new popcorn queen of Oak Ridge Heights now." Maya couldn't help but smile at the title. "I'm just trying to raise enough money for a theater camp," she said, her voice still tinged with disbelief. "But yeah, I guess the bikers like my popcorn. They really went all out. I'm not sure what happened, honestly." Kiara and her friends gathered around the stand, eyeing the remaining popcorn with eager eyes. "Well, we're definitely buying some," Kiara said, reaching for $1. "I've got a couple of bucks on me. Can we get 2 cups?" Maya quickly grabbed 2 cups and began filling them with fresh popcorn. She added just the right amount of butter and seasoning, careful to make them as perfect as the bikers had requested. As she handed the cups to Kiara and her friends, Kiara's eyes widened. "Wow, Maya, this is so good," she exclaimed. "You've really got something here." Maya's heart fluttered at the compliment. "Thanks," she said, her voice filled with a sense of pride. "I've been working on perfecting it." Kiara took another bite, nodding approvingly. "You're not just good at making popcorn, Maya. You're good at getting people to notice. I mean, who would have thought bikers would stop for popcorn? You're kind of a big deal now." The other kids laughed and nodded in agreement, their enthusiasm palpable. Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging in that moment. It wasn't just the bikers who had supported her. It was the community around her. "I didn't expect all of this," Maya admitted, looking down at the tip jar that was now filled with more cash than she could have imagined. "I really didn't think anyone would take me seriously." "You've got something special," Kiara said, her voice sincere. "And I think people are starting to notice. I mean the bikers. That's big. You could turn this stand into a regular thing and people would definitely come." Maya's mind started to race as she considered the possibility. A regular thing? Could it be possible? Could her popcorn stand actually become a business? She had always dreamed of doing something bigger, but she had never considered the idea that people would actually want to support her. Before she could respond, Mr. Harris, the owner of the local grocery store, walked up with a curious smile. He had heard the rumors about the bikers stopping by, and when he saw the small crowd gathered around the stand, he couldn't resist coming over. "Maya, I heard you've been making quite an impression around here," Mr. Harris said with a friendly grin. "Mind if I try some of your famous popcorn?" Maya blinked, surprised at the attention. "Of course, Mr. Harris. I'd be happy to serve you." She quickly scooped a cup of popcorn for him, adding just the right amount of seasoning. Mr. Harris took a bite, his eyes lighting up as he chewed. "Maya, this is incredible," he said, his voice full of praise. "I've got to say I'm impressed. You've really got a knack for this." "Thanks," Maya replied, her cheeks flushing with pride. "You know," Mr. Harris said thoughtfully, "I think you've got something here. How about we set up a deal? I could help you advertise your stand in the store. Maybe you could set up a little counter for popcorn near the checkout. I bet a lot of people would love it." Maya's eyes widened. "You mean like at the store?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," Mr. Harris replied with a chuckle. "Why not? You've got a great product, and I think people would love to see you succeed." Maya stood frozen for a moment, her mind spinning with possibilities. The bikers had introduced her to a world of unexpected support, and now her neighbors and local business owners were beginning to take notice, too. The bikers had given her a taste of what was possible. And now, with the encouragement of her friends, Kiara and Mr. Harris, Maya began to realize that this little popcorn stand might be the start of something much bigger than she ever imagined. The day had been extraordinary. Maya Ellis still couldn't quite believe it. Just a few hours ago, she had been a nervous 12-year-old girl selling popcorn on a quiet street in Oak Ridge Heights, dreaming of raising money for theater camp. Now, she had a pile of cash in her tip jar, thanks to the group of bikers who had turned her simple stand into a booming sensation. She had never imagined that something so small could become so big, so quickly. Maya sat down on the front steps of her house, letting out a deep sigh as she gazed at the pile of money sitting beside her stand. The $250 from the bikers was far more than she had expected to make today. But more than the money, it was the way the bikers had treated her, like she was someone important. They didn't just stop by to buy popcorn. They had engaged with her, complimented her on her product, and generously tipped her, making her feel seen. This was something she would never forget. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Maya's mother, Danielle Ellis, came outside with a tray of lemonade. She had been watching from the porch all afternoon, quietly observing her daughter's journey. Now she walked over to Maya, her eyes soft with pride. "You've had a busy day, haven't you?" Danielle said, setting the lemonade down next to Maya. Maya looked up, still in awe. "You have no idea, Mom," she replied. "The bikers, they were amazing. They loved my popcorn, and they tipped me like crazy. I can't believe it. I mean, I thought I was just selling snacks to make a few bucks for camp, but this is way beyond that." Danielle smiled, her eyes sparkling with pride. "I told you, Maya, when you put your heart into something, people notice. It's not just about selling popcorn. It's about sharing a piece of yourself." Maya nodded, trying to put into words what she was feeling. She had always been a shy, quiet girl, and selling popcorn on the street was something she had never imagined herself doing. But now it felt like the world was suddenly opening up to her. And then, in the quiet of the evening, a thought struck her. The bikers had promised to spread the word about her stand. What if this wasn't just a one-time thing? What if, with a little help from the community, she could turn this into something bigger? Before she could voice her thoughts, the sound of motorcycles grew louder again, much louder this time, cutting through the evening air. Maya looked up, startled. She turned to her mother, who raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. "Not again," Maya muttered. "Are they coming back?" Danielle frowned. "I don't know, honey. Maybe it's them. They said they'd spread the word, but—" The roar of engines grew louder and louder, and suddenly, a line of motorcycles appeared at the end of the street. It was the same group of bikers, Jax, Sherry, and the others, but this time they weren't alone. Behind them were at least another half-dozen motorcycles, some of them carrying even more people. The bikers weren't just a group anymore, they were a crowd. As the bikes rolled to a stop in front of Maya's house, she couldn't believe her eyes. More bikers. She stood up, unsure of what to do. She hadn't prepared for this. She had barely gotten a chance to process the first visit, and now, here they were again with even more people. The bikers dismounted one by one, and Jax, who had been the first to arrive earlier that day, walked up to Maya with a grin on his face. His leather jacket gleamed in the fading sunlight, and the rest of the group followed his lead, surrounding the stand. Maya couldn't help but feel a wave of nervous excitement. This was no longer just a few bikers buying popcorn. This was something huge. They were here again, and this time they had brought friends. Jax was the first to speak. "Maya," he said, his deep voice carrying the weight of authority, "I told the guys about your popcorn, and well, I think you've got a good thing going here." Maya blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked. Sherry stepped forward, holding a large helmet in her hands. "We told everyone we knew about your stand, and they all wanted to see what the hype was about." She grinned, her eyes sparkling. "So we brought the crew." Before Maya could fully understand what was happening, the bikers began pulling out their wallets, one by one. Jax took out $100 bill and handed it to Maya. "Here," he said, "we're all going to pitch in and help you get to your camp. We believe in what you're doing. This is for you." Maya's heart skipped a beat. $100. Her hands shook slightly as she took the bill, unable to comprehend what was happening. Jax wasn't the only one who contributed. Sherry, Derek, and the rest of the group followed suit, pulling out bills and dropping them into the helmet Sherry had passed around. The helmet quickly became heavy with the weight of bills. $20 bills, $50 bills, and even $50 tips from bikers who hadn't ordered anything earlier. By the time the last of the bikers had contributed, the helmet was filled with over $500. Maya's mind was spinning. This was more money than she had ever expected to make in one day, far more than she had even hoped for. But Jax wasn't finished yet. "We're not just here for the popcorn," he said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "We know talent when we see it, Maya, and I think you've got more than just popcorn. You've got a way of connecting with people. And that's why we're helping you out." Maya couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. This was more than just money, it was validation. It was a sign that her efforts were being recognized. She had done it. She had earned their respect, and in doing so, she had earned something even bigger than she had imagined. "Thank you," Maya finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to say. This is more than I could have ever dreamed of." Jack smiled, his face softening. "You don't need to say anything, kid. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep working hard. People like you are the reason we keep riding. We're just here to help make sure you get to where you want to go." The bikers stood around the stand for a while longer, enjoying the popcorn, chatting amongst themselves and laughing. They were no longer just a group of strangers. They were part of the community, part of Maya's journey. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Maya felt a profound sense of gratitude and determination. The bikers finally began to leave, their motorcycles roaring to life once more. But before they left, Jax turned to Maya one last time. "We're gonna spread the word about your stand," he said. "Don't worry, kid. You've got a whole lot more customers coming your way." With that, the bikers revved their engines and drove off, leaving behind not only a trail of dust but also the promise of something bigger. Maya stood there for a moment, gazing at the helmet filled with money, her heart pounding in her chest. The day had started out like any other, just a simple goal, a simple stand. But now it felt like her dream was no longer a distant wish. It was a reality. As she turned to her mother, who had been quietly watching the entire scene unfold from the porch, Maya's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, I think I can do this. I really can. I'm going to get to that camp." Danielle Ellis smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "I never doubted it for a second, Maya." The day was far from over, but Maya knew that everything had changed. And as the last of the bikers disappeared down the street, Maya realized that she wasn't just selling popcorn anymore. She was building something bigger, something that would take her to places she had only dreamed of. It had been weeks since the first biker crew stopped by Maya Ellis' popcorn stand. What had started as a small, quiet effort to raise money for her dream of attending theater camp had quickly turned into something much bigger. The bikers' generous support had catalyzed a community-wide movement that Maya never could have predicted. Today, Maya's stand was more than just a small roadside business. It was a community event, a place where neighbors gathered, exchanged stories, and supported each other in ways Maya had never imagined. The Popcorn Day initiative was in full swing, and her stand had become a fixture in Oak Ridge Heights. The once modest table, with its simple sign and homemade popcorn, had transformed into a mini festival every time Maya set up. Flyers designed by the Williams family were distributed at the local grocery store, the hardware store, and even at Mr. Garcia's bakery. Word spread quickly, and soon, people from all corners of the town were stopping by, eager to try the best popcorn in Oak Ridge Heights. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that felt like the perfect opportunity to be outside. The street was lined with families, children running around, playing games, and parents enjoying the easy comfort of summer. Maya had just set up her stand, this time with a larger table and two large jars of popcorn, one filled with the classic butter and salt, and the other with the more adventurous flavors, cheddar cheese and caramel. She'd even added a new option, spicy garlic, which was quickly becoming a favorite among the regulars. Today felt different, though. There was an energy in the air. The bikers had returned once again, and this time they didn't come alone. It was clear that the word had truly spread. Maya's stand was more than just about selling popcorn. It was now a symbol of community spirit. As Maya was organizing the popcorn, her best friend Kiara came running up, her face beaming with excitement. "Hey, Maya," Kiara said, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "Guess what? I just saw Mr. Garcia and he said he's going to donate some cookies today to go with your popcorn. He said they're his best batch yet. Maya's eyes widened with excitement. Cookies? Really? That's amazing. People are going to love that. Kiara nodded vigorously. And you know what? I heard some of the bikers are bringing ice-cold lemonade this time to go with the combo. They're really turning this into a full-fledged event. Maya looked around, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. This wasn't just her dream anymore. It was their dream. Everyone in Oak Ridge Heights had taken part in helping her succeed. The bikers, the neighbors, her friends, they all believed in her. Before she could respond, the first group of bikers pulled up. The sound of roaring engines filled the air, and Maya's heart skipped a beat. This time, it wasn't just a few bikers. It was a larger crew, all wearing matching leather jackets with the word Road Warriors emblazoned on the back. Jax, the leader of the group, stepped off his bike with a familiar smile. His presence was always calm, his deep voice resonating with warmth whenever he spoke. Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of comfort whenever he showed up. "Hey there, Maya," Jax called, walking over to the stand. "Heard you were serving up something extra special today." Maya laughed, feeling a surge of pride. "You heard right. We've got a combo deal today, popcorn and Mr. Garcia's cookies, and I think we're going to add some lemonade for good measure." "Sounds like a party in a cup," Jax said, his eyes twinkling. He glanced over at the other bikers, who were dismounting their bikes and heading toward the stand. "All right, Maya, what's the deal? How many of these combos do you think we can handle?" Maya smiled as she began preparing the order. "We're ready for you. 2 of you want spicy garlic, right?" she asked, glancing over at Sherry, who nodded enthusiastically. "Definitely," Sherry said, laughing. "That spicy garlic is just what we need after a long ride." The bikers lined up, laughing and joking among themselves as Maya carefully packed each order. But it wasn't just the bikers that were coming to her stand now. More and more neighbors were walking up, drawn by the news of the event. It seemed like everyone in Oak Ridge Heights was getting involved. Soon, Mr. Harris, the owner of the local grocery store, showed up with his wife and 2 kids, and even Mrs. Andrews, the kind elderly woman who lived next door, stopped by to say hello. "You know, Maya," Mr. Harris said, leaning on the stand as Maya served him a fresh cup of popcorn, "you've really brought something special to this town. You're not just selling snacks, you're building community. I can see the way people are coming together. And that's something we could all use more of these days." Maya blinked, taken aback by his words. She hadn't realized it before, but he was right. This wasn't just about popcorn, it was about connection. "Thank you, Mr. Harris," she said quietly, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I didn't think it would become like this. I just wanted to make enough money for the camp, but now it feels like I'm doing something more." He smiled warmly at her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing something important, Maya, and I think that's why people are supporting you. They see what you're doing and they want to be a part of it." Maya looked around at the growing crowd. Families were chatting, kids were laughing, and the atmosphere was joyous. The bikers were mingling with neighbors, sharing stories of their rides and their lives. Mr. Garcia had set up a small cookie stand next to her popcorn stand, and soon, popcorn and cookies were being handed out in perfect harmony. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the community, the coming together of people who may have never spoken before. It was about breaking down barriers, showing that no matter where you came from or what you did, there was always room for kindness and support. As the sun set lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the street, Maya realized something. This wasn't just a business anymore. This was a movement. She had unknowingly created something that resonated with everyone in her community. Her popcorn stand wasn't just selling snacks. It was fostering relationships, strengthening bonds, and creating something that would last long after the day ended. By the time evening came and the crowd began to thin, Maya was exhausted but elated. She had sold more popcorn and cookies than she had ever imagined possible. And as the bikers prepared to leave, they came over to Maya one last time, their faces filled with pride. "You did great today, Maya," Jack said, his voice calm but sincere. "You've got something real here." "Don't stop now," Sherry added. "We'll be back for sure, and we'll bring more people next time. You've got a good thing going." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you. I never could have imagined this happening, but I'm so glad it did." As the bikers revved their engines and rolled out of the neighborhood, Maya watched them disappear down the street, a sense of pride filling her chest. When she turned back to her stand, her mother was waiting for her with a smile. "You did it, Maya," Danielle said softly. "You've not only reached your goal, you've created something bigger." Maya looked around at the street, the people who had come and gone, the laughter that filled the air. "I guess I have," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "This is more than just popcorn. It's about bringing people together, and that's something I want to keep doing." And in that moment, Maya realized that her dream wasn't just about the theater camp or the popcorn stand. It was about creating a legacy of connection, of community, one cup of popcorn at a time. The stand may have started as a small business, but it had become something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. It was a movement, and Maya was at the heart of it.